The sky cracked open above the wheat fields, and every window in my diner shattered at once. I dropped to the floor as glass rained down on the counter, my ears ringing from a sound too deep to be thunder. Coffee cups shattered. The radio in the kitchen died mid-song. Outside, car alarms wailed one after another down the empty highway, and somewhere past the fields, dogs were screaming instead of barking. I crawled to the window and looked up, and my whole body went cold. A shape the size of a small mountain hung silent in the morning sky. It had no wings, no visible engines, just smooth, dark plating that seemed to swallow the sunlight instead of reflecting it. Lights blinked along its hull in slow, careful patterns, as if whatever was inside wanted to be noticed without wanting to cause panic. It hovered directly over my gravel parking lot, close enough that I could feel a low hum pressing against my chest like a second heartbeat. I had run this diner for almost 20 years. I had seen tornadoes rip through this county. I had seen floods and fires and a hailstorm that dented every car on Main Street. Nothing had prepared me for a warship floating above my wheat field on an ordinary Tuesday morning. My hands shook as I stood up, still gripping a dish towel out of pure habit. Through the broken window, I saw the whole town spilling into the street, people pointing, some running for their basements, others just frozen in place. A boy on a bicycle nearly crashed into a mailbox because he could not stop staring at the sky. Then a smaller craft detached from the underside of the ship. It fell fast, faster than anything should fall, before slowing at the last second and settling onto the gravel with barely a sound. Steam hissed from its edges. A ramp lowered, and for a moment, nothing happened at all. The whole street seemed to hold its breath. Two figures stepped out. They wore armor the color of storm clouds, fitted close to their bodies, with silver markings across the chest that caught the light strangely. Each one carried a weapon on her hip that looked capable of leveling my building without much effort. My first instinct was to run like everyone else. My legs did not listen. Something about the way the taller one moved, steady and searching, scanning the diner like she already knew every inch of it, pulled at a memory I had buried a long time ago. I stepped outside instead of running. The dish towel was still in my hand. The taller woman stopped walking the moment she saw me. For one full second, the armored soldier with a weapon at her side looked exactly like a frightened girl standing in a parking lot in the rain. "Sarai," I said, before I could stop myself. Her breath caught. "You remember." The second woman, just as tall now, with the same sharp, catching light in her eyes, crossed the gravel in a few quick strides. Her hands were trembling, though nothing about her posture suggested fear. "Vel," I said, my voice barely working, "it's really you." 15 years fell away in an instant. I remembered that rainy night clearly, even though I had spent years telling myself I must have imagined half of it. Two soaked children had been huddled behind my dumpster, wrapped in torn silver fabric that had no business existing near a small-town diner. I had almost called the sheriff. Instead, I brought them inside, made them eggs and toast, and let them sleep in the storage room until morning. By sunrise, they were gone, leaving only a folded coat and a strange warm coin I could never identify, no matter how many people I showed it to over the years. I never told anyone the full story, because no one would have believed me. I barely believed it myself. Now those same girls stood in front of me as grown women, wearing armor built for a war I had never known existed, while their ship hung silent above my wheat field like a held breath. "You're really here," I said, "after all this time." "We said we would come back," Vel answered. "It took longer than we wanted." Behind them, more figures dropped from the larger ship in smaller crafts, landing in neat formation across the field. They were not soldiers marching to attack. They stood at attention, facing me, as if I were someone worth that kind of respect. A murmur ran through the crowd gathered along the street, disbelief turning slowly into something close to wonder. Sarai must have noticed my confusion, because she raised a hand, and the formation relaxed, though none of them left. "We should talk," she said, "somewhere quieter, if that is still possible." I glanced at my diner, windows shattered, chairs knocked over from the shockwave, but otherwise standing. It's not exactly quiet in there right now, but it's still mine. We walked inside together, stepping over broken glass, and I found myself doing the only thing that felt normal in that moment. I started clearing a table. You do not have to do that, Vel said gently. I think I do, I told her. Some things haven't changed. They sat in the corner booth, the same one they had sat in 15 years earlier, and for a moment, none of us spoke. I busied myself sweeping glass, mostly because my hands needed something to do besides shake. You want to know why we are here, Sarai finally said. The thought crossed my mind, I admitted, along with about 100 other questions. She glanced at Vel, who gave a small nod, as if giving permission to continue. 15 years ago, our transport was attacked over this planet. We crashed far from any city, with no working communication device, no food, and no way to reach anyone who could help us. We were being hunted by people who wanted our family gone entirely. We had 6 days without eating before we found your diner. I remember how hungry you both looked, I said quietly. We were prepared to surrender to whoever found us first, Vel continued. Not because we wanted to, but because captivity at least meant food. Then you saw 2 strange children behind a dumpster, and brought us inside without asking a single question. You gave us a meal, a place to sleep, and your own coat. You expected nothing back. It wasn't much, I said. Eggs and toast. Where we come from, nothing is given without a price attached, Sarai said, and her voice tightened. Every kindness is a transaction, logged and remembered, until it is repaid with interest. You broke that pattern completely. You fed us because we were hungry, and then you let us go without demanding anything. That single night changed the course of both our lives. I set the broom aside and sat down across from them, the way I used to sit with regular customers at closing time. What happened after you left that morning? A scout ship from our mother's exiled fleet found us 2 days later, Vel explained. We told them about the diner cook who fed 2 strangers with no questions asked. It became something of a story among our people, passed from crew to crew. Somehow it gave others hope during a very difficult war. We trained for years, Sarai added. We rose through the ranks of a fleet, fighting to reclaim what was taken from our family. Every time things grew difficult, every time we considered giving up entirely, we thought about that night. About eggs on a chipped plate and a coat that did not fit either of us. It reminded us why the fight mattered, and what kind of people we wanted to remain, even while fighting it. I felt something tighten in my chest, somewhere between pride and disbelief. I had no idea any of that was happening. I just thought about 2 lost kids I never saw again. You saved us, Vel said simply, not with weapons or plans, just with a plate of food and a place to sleep. That is a kind of strength we did not fully understand until much later. Outside, the crowd along the street had grown larger, though none of them approached the diner. A few of the armored crew members stood near the entrance, calm and watchful, clearly under orders not to intrude. Why come now? I asked. After all this time. Our war has reached a turning point, Sarai said. We finally secured enough support to push our enemies back permanently. Before we continue toward whatever comes next, we wanted to see the place where everything truly began. We wanted you to know what your kindness built. Vel reached into a pouch at her side and placed something small on the table between us. It was the same coin-shaped object I had kept for 15 years, except now there were 3 more just like it, each engraved with different symbols. These represent worlds under our family's protection now, she explained. Worlds that are safe because we did not give up. Every one of them exists, partly because of a decision you made without hesitation on a rainy night. I picked up the coins carefully, turning them over in my hand. They felt warm, almost alive. I don't know what to say to that. You do not need to say anything, Sarai said, smiling for the first time since she had stepped off the ship. You already said everything that mattered, 15 years ago, when you asked if we were hungry instead of asking who we were. We sat together for a long while after that, talking quietly, while the shattered glass outside was swept away, and the town slowly returned to something like normal. I made them eggs again, on a stove that barely worked after the shockwave, using the last carton I had in the kitchen. They ate slower this time, savoring it rather than rushing, though I noticed neither of them ever stopped smiling. Before they left, Sarai turned to me at the door. Whatever happens next, know that this place, and you, will always be remembered, as where we chose who to become. I watched them walk back across the gravel lot toward their ship, armor catching the afternoon light, followed by the same quiet formation of crew members. The smaller craft lifted off first. Then the massive ship above slowly turned and rose higher, engines humming that same low note I remembered from years before, until it disappeared entirely into the clouds. The town returned to its usual rhythm within a few days, windows repaired, rumors slowly fading into local legend. But I kept those coins in a small box behind the counter, and every night before closing, I found myself glancing toward the sky. It never cost me much, feeding two strangers on a rainy night. A little food, a spare coat, and no questions asked. Yet somehow that small act rippled outward further than I ever could have imagined, reaching across worlds I will never see, in a story I only ever witnessed the very beginning of. Sometimes the smallest kindness is the one that changes everything.